Brighton Hove Albion have a history of finding hidden footballing gems for cheap and selling them on for big profits. It's a model that isn't exactly new or revolutionary, but one that Brighton have become very famous for and are pretty good at doing. Over the last few years, they've unearthed multiple high quality players from around the globe: Ecuador, Argentina, Belgium, and so on. But there's not been many success stories and interesting football journeys quite like Kaoru Mitoma's. Mitoma has become probably the face of Brighton on a global scale, with him being at the forefront of a massive rise in Asian supporters. But how did he get to this point? How did Brighton find him? And how is he now worth so much considering he only signed for £2.5 million? But before I get into all of that, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and every one of them is massively appreciated to help me get there. Anyway, Kaoru Mitoma's journey is not the story of a regular footballer. It's not your typical academy wonder kid fairy tale. Mitoma's career didn't explode until his early 20s. He turned down professional contracts when most people would grab them, and along the way, he wrote a thesis on dribbling that has since become almost as famous as him. In this video, we're going to walk through the full story, from his early years in Japan to the late decision to go to university, to his time at, excuse my pronunciation, Kawasaki Frontale, his loan in Belgium, and then his transformation into arguably Brighton's most reliable and most irreplaceable player, and possibly one of the most technically gifted footballers I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. Mitoma was born on May 20th, 1997 in Japan. Like lots of kids in Japan and all over the globe, football wasn't just a hobby, it was part of the culture around him. The J-League had been going for a few years when he was born, and Japanese football was going through a real period of growth and excitement. Mitoma joined the Kawasaki Frontale Youth Academy at a young age. Frontale at that point had already built a reputation as one of Japan's top clubs for developing technically skilled players. He had speed, close control, and a natural born ability to beat players. But, and this is important, by the time that he was finished high school, he didn't feel physically or mentally ready for the professional game. And this is where a big turning point happened. At 18 years old, Mitoma was offered a professional deal with Kawasaki Frontale, and most young players aspiring to be footballers would obviously sign that contract without a second thought, but Mitoma turned it down. Why? And he's been very honest about this in interviews. He simply didn't think he was ready yet. Physically, he thought he wasn't up to the standard, and mentally, he felt like he still had a lot of growing to do. And instead of gambling on a career that could fizzle out because he simply wasn't up to the level that was needed of him, he decided to take a different route. He went to one of Japan's top sports universities. There, he could study, play high-level football in the university's league, and develop without the pressure of weekly professional matches. In a world where football careers can easily be over by 25 if you haven't broken through early, this was a bold choice, but it also would shape the player that he became. While at university, Mitoma did something pretty strange and unusual. For his graduation research project, he wrote his thesis on dribbling. And not in a vague dribbling is important kind of way. No, this was an incredible analytical and scientific breakdown of one-on-one situations. He studied the movements of defenders, the optimal angles of which to approach them, and the visual cues to look for when deciding to take someone on, and how you could then manipulate those cues to your advantage. And one key finding, he realized that most amateur defenders look at the ball when they defend, while professionals focus on your hips. So to beat both, you have to disguise your intentions through body movement and subtle changes of speed, or body feints. It wasn't just a theory, he practiced it over and over, and you can see it works if you watch him in the Premier League against Premier League fullbacks today. But going back then, after graduating, Mitoma finally joined Kawasaki Frontale in 2020. Now older, stronger, and more experienced, he was ready, and it showed immediately. In his first J-League season, he scored 13 goals in 30 appearances, which for a winger is pretty incredible numbers. He was electric. The confidence, the dribbling, the decision making, it was all there. And European scouts noticed. And that is where, in 2021, Brighton made their move, signing him for a reported £2.5 million, which could easily be seen as spending a lot on a random 24-year-old from the J-League. But when you then look at what happened after, it is an absolute bargain in hindsight. But here's the thing about Brighton. They rarely throw players straight into the Premier League unless they're very, very sure that they're ready. So Mitoma was sent out on loan to USG in Belgium, a club also owned by Brighton chairman Tony Bloom. That season in Belgium was huge for him. The Belgian Pro League is physical, more direct and more transitional than the J-League. You get less time on the ball, the defenders are more aggressive, and Mitoma had to adapt to find ways to keep his style effective in tighter spaces against bigger and faster players. Whilst on loan, he played 27 games and scored 8 goals and made a real impression. More importantly, he learned European football, the pace, the pressing, and the need to protect the ball. And by the time that he came back to Brighton, he was ready. And me personally, as a Brighton fan, I didn't actually at all expect what was about to happen. Obviously, I had paid attention to his loan spell at USG, but it's never quite the same. And I didn't really expect him to make it much, if any, impact on the first team for some while, especially as Leandro Trossard was the player in his position. And at the time, he was one of our best and most consistent players. But then he made his debut against Newcastle, and in that only 15 minutes as a Brighton player, you could tell that something special was happening here. And that very, very same season, in his first full Premier League year, he hit 7 goals and 6 assists. Double figures for goal contributions. But as good as those numbers are, they don't tell the whole story. His impact on games was so far beyond stat. He was one of the most exciting players on the ball you could imagine. The way that he controls the ball is second to none, and I genuinely think that his first touch is top 5 in the world, and that's genuinely me holding back. Anyway, let's talk about that dribbling, because it is what sets him apart. Mitoma doesn't just beat players with raw pace, despite the fact he is obviously very quick. He uses changes of speed, deceptive body movement, and perfect close control to make defenders overcommit. In the 2022-2023 season, he averaged over 3 successful dribbles per 90 minutes, one of the best rates in the Premier League. And these aren't just pointless dribbles in the midfield, they're direct, they're dangerous, and they almost always end up in a shot or a chance created in some magnitude. You just watch him closely and you'll see that he rarely takes the same route twice. One time he'll go inside, the next he'll go out, and he'll just burn you. It's that unpredictability and that technical execution that makes him such a nightmare to defend against. Right now, Mitoma is one of Brighton's most reliable attacking outlets, and when things aren't working, you can look to him. When you need a spark, you can give him the ball, and more often than not, he will deliver. Fullbacks can know exactly what's coming. They know he's going to face them up, shift his weight, and explode into the space, but they just can't stop it. He's also incredibly consistent. Even in games where he doesn't score or assist, he's forcing defenders deep, creating space for others, and keeping us on the front foot. And all whilst doing that, Mitoma's arrival has also been a game changer off the pitch. Brighton's following in Japan has skyrocketed since he broke into the team. Matches are being broadcast there more regularly, shirt sales have gone through the roof, and the club's social media engagement from Japan has exploded so much that they have their own Japanese account. We've even seen Japanese fans flying halfway around the world just to watch him live. He's not just a player, he's like an icon. And for a club like Brighton, that global reach is genuinely priceless. You just have to go to a game yourself and you can see the sheer impact he has. I could bet you everything I have, you will see multiple Mitoma shirts at any given game. His impact on the following alone has repaid that transfer fee, and that's completely ignoring all of the stuff that he's done on the pitch as well. There are simply not many players like Kaoru Mitoma, and Kaoru Mitoma's story isn't about overnight success. It's about knowledge and knowing yourself, taking the longer road and arriving when you feel like you're ready. From those university pitches in Japan to his loan in Belgium to becoming one of the most feared wingers in the Premier League, he's proof that patience, intelligence, and relentless improvement can take you right to the very top. So, let me know in the comments, is Mitoma the most technically gifted player Brighton have ever had, and how long do you think we can keep hold of him? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And with that being said, fade to black.